So when exactly the project is going to complete? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you think it's going to take some more time? Thank you so much. Yeah, I really have finished my project today. Yeah, I'm done almost. Okay. See you again. Have a nice weekend. Take care. Bye bye. Bye. Ah, finally the work is done. But as usual, I think I have to stay back. I really don't know if I really leave early what exactly people will think. Maybe they will think that I'm not productive. I have, however, done all my work today. Anyway, let's continue to stretch some more hours. Who knows, if I really leave early, people might think I'm not productive. Let's continue. I think I should browse some different websites. Oh, that's something nice. I can watch that. Okay, that's interesting. Wow,
Quad!
there are some new informations. Yeah, I already touched the figure for this month. I think I already finished my target for this year. Wow, I will just prepare my report, but I think it's too late for the day. I should finish it, and I'll make sure that tomorrow in the morning I will be able to submit the report. I don't mind if I really get late because I always understand that my work should be finished by the time I leave the office, no matter how much late it is, but it is important that I should finish my work. Yes, it's done. Now I can leave for home. Productivity is often considered as the efficiency, how exactly we do our work. The definition has, of course, changed over time. The concept, however, is always been tied to that relationship between production and the utilization of those resources at our disposal. Of course, other elements have an influence on the productivity and efficiency of our business. Factors such as the workload, invested capital, technology, used available resources, number of employees, and their training, staff motivation, etc. All of them play an important role when considering productivity. It has been seen that time management is nevertheless the determining factor when we talk about optimization and productivity. Time is necessary for everything, so it is the only logical that investing in proper time management will ultimately benefit our productivity, both personally and professionally speaking. So, we are going to discuss all these things today in this webinar and understand that what exactly are the things we can do to become more productive and have a productive attitude towards life. Productivity is a state of mind which tells us that how efficient we are in our work. Most of the time, people often misunderstood that productivity means doing more in a less span of time. But in short, productivity is not only that how much you do in less span of time, but how much efficient you are in your work. Today in this discussion, during this webinar, we'll understand that how exactly one can become productive. Often we have seen that people always have a misconception that if you are giving more time behind a work and if you're always keeping yourself engaged, that means you are productive. And that is why we have often seen that people who are always sticking to their job, who are always hanging around a particular thing and take more time in doing their work, we often understand that the person is more productive. I can give you a quick example. Think of a film star who is actually making so many movies in a year, but none of the movies are so much successful in engaging the audience. But there are some film stars who make only one or two movies in a year, but those movies are really done in a detail and in a wonderful manner that it becomes a blockbuster of the year, and it makes a business which the 10 or 20 movies cannot even do. So you can understand the comparison itself. It is sometimes how efficient you do the work that makes the difference. So today, in this webinar, I welcome you to join this session to understand that how exactly you can become productive in your life and how you can live a productive life. So without wasting much time, let's join into the discussion and let's listen what our guest speakers have to say. I welcome you all for the webinar, and as usual, we are back once again for an interesting and an absorbing session. As we promised last week that we'll be back for one more interesting webinar with the thought for food, something which really helps you to think positive and live positive. So what about living productively? Because we all want to live productively, and that is why today we have brought a topic which is very close to everybody, that is how to live a productive life. We know that today, in a world where there are every time, every moment we have to face some challenge, we are definitely facing a difficult time in concentrating ourselves in our work. And we also find that sometimes when we are trying to become productive, on the contrary, we are finding that we are getting more unproductive. So what exactly we can do to become productive? That is what we are going to learn in this webinar today. And for this, we have our guest speakers who are going to shed more light into this topic, who are going to take through their talks and their insightful knowledge that how exactly we can really become productive in life. We know that productivity is basically a term which is more in economics, where people say that it is proportionate to the input which you give to the output, and that is what we call productivity. But when it comes to human life, we really talk about how much you are really occupied and what exactly you are doing out of that occupancy, what exactly yields out of your entire output. That is what important. This day, when we have seen that there are so many new dynamics into our work culture, particularly after the post-pandemic situation, if you see, most of the people are doing work at home or they're doing their work remotely. We see there is a primary challenge. People who are generally into the management level, sometimes they are thinking that their employees are not productive, or they are thinking they are counterproductive or they're underproductive. So what exactly is the dilemma? Is it really a question of productivity, or we are talking about a work-life balance, or we are talking about a particular utopian culture which never exists? So we have to really get to the bottom of this fact and understand that how one can become productive in life. Of course, by understanding the meaning of productivity in the first place, and then understanding how to really implement the various tips and tricks, or maybe the steps, how to really become productive in life. So I would really welcome my guest speakers today, and I will introduce them quickly. We have Mr. Anna Boral, who is a facilitator, trainer, motivator, and a YouTuber. So I'm really glad that Mr. Boral is here today with us, who will be sharing his knowledge that how to live a productive life and how to make a difference in our life through the various techniques. Similarly, we have our next guest speaker, Mr. Sanjit Basu. Mr. Sanjit is a maverick person who has been training people for more than a decade now. It is close to 2 decades, which I understand. And Mr. Basu has already transformed many young budding talents, where he has already trained them wonderfully in public speaking forums. And he also is going to share his knowledge that how exactly one can become productive in life and what are the ways to live a productive way or in a productive manner. Similarly, we have a very young, talented speaker here. Her name is Mohana. Mohana is actually also a YouTuber, and she often comes with her sessions on motivation. So we'll also listen from her that what exactly she finds as a representative of Generation G, that what exactly are the techniques to become productive in life. So productivity is definitely an interesting subject, and that is why every time the employer, the business houses, they're always talking about, they always say that how much productive you have been throughout the day. You are working 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, and 12 hours, but are you really productive? At the same time, we see that in countries, like in some of the countries, they have already made 4 days working. But are they really productive? And there are countries where people still are working 6 days. And sometimes they feel that all the 7 days they should work. But at the end of the day, what really counts is that how much productive you are. So it is something which is a debatable topic. So let's continue the debate. Let's continue the conversation with our guest speakers. So I would request Mr. Boral to make a start with his powerful speech so that we all can get a momentum to this wonderful show. Please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Das. Very good evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are, to all the participants and the guests, as well as the audience. Uh, the topic I found was extremely interesting today, how to lead a productive life. Now, if I go back to the core of the topic, my core question would be not how to live a productive life, but how do you define a productive life for yourself? That's the first thing we need to understand. So, there are two things which I would consider. The first is personal productivity, or rather, three things I would consider. The first is personal productivity, as in, what do you consider that doing this, I will become successful or I'll become productive? The second is your corporate productivity, wherein how you think you are being productive at the workplace, how your team leader or your manager thinks that you're productive at the workplace. The third is how you are, which is actually what the topic of this webinar is your life productive? Now, if I look at this particular point, what do I mean by productive? What I mean by productive is that productivity is the measurement of a person's progress towards their significant and particularly intended results or goals. Now, if I'm looking at productivity to be the measure of a person's progress towards their significant personal results or goals, which means to say, if I am going to be leading a productive life, the first point where I need to be careful about, or what I need to work on, is to identify what is productivity to me, what is satisfactory to me. Only then will I be able to break it down into parts which will enable me to achieve that productivity in my life, that perspective or that angle in my life, which will enable me to reach that point where I would call myself, yes, I am successful. So there might be, for example, Mr. Das, for example, if you and I would probably think of ourselves, we would probably say, okay, if I can deliver, for example, if I think of myself, I would probably say, if I can deliver to a group of youngsters and I excite them so much and they become successful in their lives, that would be extremely productive in my uh, perspective. There would be another person who does the same job as mine, but that person thinks it doesn't matter who I deliver it to, as long as I make $20,000 a day. So productivity, you need to really identify the result that you want to achieve. Only then will be able to identify whether you're leading a productive life or not. Over to you, Mr. Das.
Thank you so much, Mr. Baral. But this also opens to another area, which I would request Mr. Sanjit if you can highlight. As you said, that productivity is just the perception of a person how exactly one thinks of productivity and how much impactful that productivity could be for every individual. So, what do you think, Mr. Sanjit, in this regard?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank PMA initiative and also Mr. Premang Das for making such an event and also keeping me as a speaker. So my perception about being productive is that there is a very good saying that your addiction to the distraction is the death of your being productive. So basically what happens in today's world, we are being distracted by so many ways. And the biggest distraction is the tiny gadget or tiny white screen that is your mobile phone. So it is also surveyed that if someone is being distracted and to bring back that attention, it needs at least 23 minutes. So that once you are distracted again, if you want to bring back your attention to the work, then you lose your 23 minutes, valuable 23 minutes. So that's why what I feel, we have to keep ourselves, being from distracted. We should not be distracted in our work time. So what happens in our work culture, we make some to-do list. We make some to-do list that what I am going to do in the from morning to till our working hour. So if I make 25 to-do list, and at the end of my working hour, 8 hours, then I find that only maybe half of this is ticked off. So remaining 50% are still there. So I get frustrated. I get anxious. How I can do all these things. So basically, what happens, in our working days, we should not keep such a vast to-do list, 25, 20, 30 like this. So there is a very good method that it is called, 1-3-5. So 1-3-5 is such that you keep a very important task, one task, which is you think you have to do it. Then medium, you keep 3, which is you need to do, and another 5 which are very managerial kind of thing, very not very important. So your first priority would be that how you can do the first task, which is very important. Then you go for the second medium task, and then you go for the managerial or very manual. Now again, one thing is that which why we really not keep our focus too much is that when I am very productive, in which time I am very productive, or in which time I am very energetic. So one has to really think about himself that in which time, maybe in the morning or afternoon or evening, which time he is very productive, and that time he has to keep the very important work. Otherwise, what will happen? He will be exhausted. He will be anxious. Anxiety will creep in. So there are many factors that if somebody wants to be productive, so one has to keep so many things in his under control. And like as I told you earlier, that distractions are of maybe we can find 2 types. One is, you can say, internal distraction and external distraction. So internal distractions, which is under your control, which distraction you can control yourself, like mobile phone. You can put it in the silence mode, or you can switch it off for the time being, so that you can do your task. So this is under your control. And there are certain distractions which are not under your control. These are external control. Suppose you are working, and that time your colleague drops in, and he wastes your valuable 10-20 minutes by doing some small talk or something like this. So that is it's not under your control. You cannot control that thing. So being if somebody wants to be productive, the distraction is the biggest factor, which what I feel. If somebody keeps control of not being distracted, so I think that productivity will improve more and more. Okay. So that is what I wanted
Mr.
to say.
Sanjit.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you have really widened the topic, and which really comes up is like that there are so many ways and options through which one can get distracted. And as you rightly said, the valuable 23 minutes which one take from getting engaged to disengaged or oriented to disoriented, so that is really crucial. So I have seen that most of the time people, whether they're a student, whether they're a professional, every time you decide to start your day, you always end up starting the day with some trivial things which really are not that much relevant for you. And you don't do that number one work or the number one task or what you wanted to say is the primary task. So we basically spend the first half of the day or the first 10 minutes or 20 minutes in those trivial things which basically are not so relevant. And ultimately, you suppose open your social media, you open the Insta, you open the FB, and you keep on scrolling and scrolling. And when it goes from 2 to 20 scrolls, you never know that. And you get really absorbed. And sometimes when you have a quality time to spend, but you have this the menace in your hand. I call this smart device a menace. As you say, a tiny device, I call this as a menace. So I think this device really get you flown, and sometimes you get absorbed in the wormhole. So it's like a wormhole for me, and you cannot know that when exactly it absorbs you, and you really sometimes sleep late, you get diverted from your work, and sometimes this 23 minutes can be more than 23 minutes even, unfortunately. So I would request Ms. Mohana to tell about the impact of social media and productivity, which is something which is very, vibrant among the youngsters, because youngsters are very fascinated with the social media and they really get attracted. And how exactly you find this, this threat or this, maybe this as an opportunity, how you see this? First of all, I'm really glad that you are available today for this show. So thank you, Mona. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, a very warm greeting to everybody present here. Well, so speaking about social media and productivity, yes, this is something which really makes a person unproductive at times. But then again, it is not always true because there are certain things which are useful in social media even. Now that goes to another arena and it again gives rise to another new topic. Well, not getting into that, let's just speaking about productivity. For me, being productive isn't something that happens overnight. So, not just social media, but there are different other aspects too, which prevents a person from being productive. So, we should know the different ways how one can be productive. And today I'm here to discuss those ways and how to follow them and how I exactly follow my lifestyle. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mona. So we would definitely come back to you to know what exactly are the techniques you follow. And I'm sure our audiences would definitely take those, the suggestions as a takeaway from this webinar, that how exactly one can become productive. I will just quickly come back to Arnav sir. Arnav sir, if you can just tell me, like you have been now almost more than 2 decades, you are into the training business. You have been interacting with so many C-suite level managers. You are talking with the directors, entrepreneurs, even employees in different segments, in different sectors. So how do you really tell people to become productive in the very first place? And then we would like to know that what exactly you suggest is the easy way to be productive in their work.
Okay. So here's the first thing I usually suggest. I think I would go back to what Mr. Sanjit was talking about, which is basically classifying your tasks that are required. Now, there's something called the Eisenhower matrix. Eisenhower matrix basically classifies all your tasks into four blocks. The first is urgent and important. The second is urgent and not important. So urgent and I'm sorry. So it'll be the opposite side for you. Urgent and important. Urgent and not important. Not urgent and important. Not important. Not urgent. Right. So first things first. What you need to do is urgent and important. Get it done. Put them on your calendar first. The second is important but not urgent. Schedule it. I will do it at XYZ time. Now, if you mean XYZ time, mean XYZ time. The third is urgent but not important. Get someone else to do it. Don't even think about getting absorbed into it. Delegate it. And fourth is not important, not urgent. Forget about it. Delete it from the to-do list. So that's the first classification that is required, which is to use a workflow management system that fits into this Eisenhower matrix. Okay. Now, when I go back and talk about, well, this ideally should be the last step, but the first most important step, obviously, should be learn to control your attention. Like I think Mr. Sanjit also mentioned that, once you kind of start getting diverted, you get diverted away for about 21 minutes, right? 21 or 24. I think he mentioned 21. Anyway, so the idea is that, so even if it is not just about mobile phones, when I'm talking to someone and I'm intently doing something, and I suddenly, so let's say, for example, I think Mohana would be best to, kind of give an answer, example of this. If somebody's attending a classroom session, okay, and the teacher is explaining a 45-minute lesson or 1 hour lesson, any person average has an attention span of about 8 to 12 minutes. After about 8 to 12 minutes, his or her attention starts, diverting away to somewhere which is maybe imaginary, maybe something related to what is being spoken in class, but not exactly that. Maybe something absolutely unrelated. And then about a 3-4 minute gap, maybe up to a 12 minute, like Mr. Sanjit was mentioning, the person basically, and he comes back, right? So this distraction that happens is normal. That's human. So there's nothing wrong in doing that. And that's not your fault, which is why teachers are always suggested to repeat pointers when they teach. So because every person will not be attentive at the same time. But the second thing that you need to do, so the first thing that an individual needs to do is learn to control your attention. I understand that your attention span is low, but try to expand it a little further. I'm not saying your attention span is 8, jump it to 1 hour. No, 8 minutes to 1 hour is not possible. 8 minutes to 10 minutes, fine. Increase it. Determine your significant results. Now, this is where I'm going back to the Eisenhower matrix. Determine what are your significant results you want to achieve. Jot them down. Jot them down. Now, classify them in terms of important and urgent, important and not urgent, urgent and not important and not urgent. And once you classify them, bring them onto your calendar in terms of with respect to your importance and urgency. Yeah. Now, once that is done, identify the necessary but not significant tasks. You have done that. Outsource the low importance tasks, which we've already discussed. Shift tasks to someday or maybe list. Someday, I'll do it someday, or I'll maybe do it tomorrow. That kind of thing. And maintain a workflow. This is the absolute basic structure of being productive. Over to you, Mr. Das.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arnab. But that also gives me an idea that, as you rightly said, that sometimes when we have, certain work which are really sucking most of our time, and I've seen that especially those who are in the corporate lifestyle, they tend to do a lot of things, and unfortunately, their task list or the wish list get extended by the day progresses.
Here is the point. That is exactly where it comes out of. Because in the corporate, it is not necessarily possible to always unitask.
Exactly.
I'm using the word unitask as a contradictory word of multitask, right?
Yeah.
So in today's world, people are so um, desperate, or rather, people are so forced to multitask that their results get scattered all over the place, and all corporates are in a firefighting mode.
Exactly.
Sorry to feel this, but that's the truth.
That's the truth. And
Now,
yeah, please.
which is why it was very necessary to, you know, it should be more like a horse. I mean, I'm sure you've seen a horse has pads
Blinkers.
on the sides of its
Yeah.
eyes. Why?
Yeah.
Blinkers. And why are the blinkers there? To make sure that he doesn't look sideways and go sideways, right? Which is
Absolutely.
usually what a cow or buffalo does. A cow or buffalo never walks straight. He sees something on the right and moves to the right, which is what happens to humans as well. Though we don't have eyes on the side, we look straight. But in our case, what happens is we get distracted with something that comes in between our tasks that we are currently doing, and we get distracted by that,
Yeah.
right? So even if you're in the workplace, yes, people are talking about why can't you multitask, and managers are screaming at juniors, why can't you multitask? But the fact of the matter is, multitasking is killing your expertise.
Absolutely.
If somebody, if you actually made sure that this gentleman or this lady completed what he was doing crisp, given, okay, so I have a 20 minute time frame. I'm saying a 1 hour time frame. Let's say a 1 hour time frame. I have 4 tasks to complete. I have to complete within 1 hour. I I pick up the most important, finish it, and then move to the next one. But then I will have to make sure that I classify my time accordingly, not, multitask and spoil my life. So productive life is
Just
a
I just
side
want to
effect of
I just want to
unproductive life.
counter you here, Mr. Arnav. I really appreciate your suggestion, and I'm sure like people should be benefited by their advice. But happens in reality, you also have experience, and everybody has experience that what happens that in real life, though we want that we should really go in the proper organized flow, or we should really do these things, but unfortunately we were being put into a circumstance where we have to move out of our to-do list, and sometimes
Absolutely.
we cannot stick to our routine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, here's the point. That is exactly my point. Now, if you had a to-do list where you had the important and urgent pieces first,
Yeah.
you removed the not important and not urgent ones. Yeah. And you are actually doing the and urgent and important piece right now.
Exactly.
And like you said, something comes up which distracts me from there. Obvious, it will come. Now, you get into that. I'm not saying that you will not. It's impossible for a human to not get distracted. Mind it. I'm not saying that's, you will have to make sure you don't go there. No, because it's not possible for any human being to do that. So you will go there. But you being a human being, after you get in there, maybe a little bit down the line, control yourself, come back and say, hey, I have
Yeah.
something pending. Let me finish that
Exactly.
and then come to this. That's, as a human being, that's what you need.
So
Does that clarify?
what I understand, that what is important for an individual to understand, that the person should have the control button in his hand, and he should know where he should press it and pause it and come back and revive, so that he can go back to his work, so that he is no more disoriented. He's once again coming back and engaging himself. So, Mr. Sanjit, I just want to
It's
ask
about
you here. Yeah, please. You
I
wanted
was
to say?
talking about it. It is actually about goal orientation. Like you mentioned,
Yeah,
the orientation.
yeah,
It has to be about goal orientation, because unless you are goal oriented, you
yeah.
wouldn't know what path to follow.
Oh,
And if you don't
yes.
know the path to follow, you will obviously diverge.
Yeah,
Simple. It's absolutely simple that way.
absolutely.
Over to you.
Absolutely. Mr. Sanjit, I just want to know one thing here. Like, since you train people, you also train them on goal setting, how to really, plan their goals, goal seeking, and all these things you do. So, what exactly do you think one should really follow while doing the goal setting, and how much honest one should be towards the goals? As we talk about, you know, goal oriented, and we should know what exactly our goals. And I have seen personally what I used to plan Sunday night, I cannot do the same on the Monday morning. Because every day when I land in the office, I find that there are 10 distractions. And unfortunately, the important tasks become urgent work. And I get flown. And when the Monday has passed, I don't even know. And gradually it cascades for the next day. And I still find the work which I've planned during the Sunday night remains once again to be pushed for the next week, so that it's one more lagging, and the work pressure simply keeps on piling up. And at a point, what I find that the stress factors also increases. Although I train people on stress management, but I personally also face this challenge. I do something which I will be sharing with you, but before I would like to listen that what exactly you do as a trainer when you train people on goal setting, and how exactly or how honestly you teach them to become dedicated or honest to their goals. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, please.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So the thing is that you see, there is a very good saying that morning shows the day. This morning shows the day. So when you woke up from the bed, that first hour of your day is very, very important, and that really uh, keeps you, energetic, keeps you optimistic, keeps you motivated to do something. So if you are not doing something good in the first hour of your morning, that is when you woke up from the bed, that really lingers throughout your day. So that's why what I basically do is that there is a famous book called that I'm just forgetting, Miracle Morning, I think. Miracle Morning. In that book, the writer said something very important. That is, 20 minutes rule, or you can divide it 20-20-20. That is,
Okay.
first hour you can divide it in 20-20-20 in 3 parts. So what you do the first 20 minutes, and then what you do the next 20 minutes, and then what you do in the next, again, that 20 minutes. So what I do also, that is, I also practice since I read this book, that first 20 hours of the morning I do some exercise to keep my blood flowing. So I do some exercise, then I do some meditation, and then I read something which is very positive, something very motivated.
Mm-hmm.
And that really gives me the energy to carry all the things in my day. And one thing also that we have a common misconception that if you spend a maximum hour at your desk, that means you are more productive. So this is also a misconception. That what happens, you are sitting at the same place for 4 hours, 5 hours at a stretch. So you are not giving 100% there. So then again, there's a very good technique. I think all of you know that is Pomodoro. It is just called that. So after doing some work for half an hour, you take a break of 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Okay. So that is also I practice in my life also. I don't do anything at a stretch. I do for maybe 1 hour. Then I give a break of 10 minutes. I do something. Maybe I have a cup of coffee or cup of tea. Then maybe I chit chat with somebody. Then again I come back to my work. So that gives me the motivation to do some work and coming out from my monotony. That is.
I think that is very interesting, and I'm sure we
In
would
fact,
all love to follow that.
there's something I would there's
Yeah.
something I would love to add here.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Sanjeev said, there's something. I mean, like you mentioned that I've spent some time with Infosys Technologies, and of course, the gentleman I absolutely respect is Mr. Narayan Murthy. Mr. Murthy said one thing once, very, 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 very appropriate for what Mr. Sanjeev just said, which is that if somebody is, it was about workplace management and time management and stuff like that. So where he said, everybody has been given an 8-hour time frame to be in the office. If somebody is staying beyond 8 hours in the office, then he's not It is not that he's working great. There is definitely a problem. The manager needs to go and figure out, or that person himself needs to figure out that I have a problem. I'm not being productive enough. If I'm productive enough, I should be finishing my responsibilities within 8 hours and go home.
Absolutely.
So if you are not finishing your responsibilities within the allotted time, there is definitely a problem. Understand that and take action. If you need, please take help of a senior, of a consultant, of maybe a guru. I don't know, whatever. Reach out to trainers, reach out to coaches, reach out to your boss, your manager. Talk to him, talk to that person, talk to whoever can help you out, and find out where you are probably dropping out. That's very important. Thank you, Mr. Sanjeev, for bringing this up. Over to you,
Thank you.
Uh,
Mr. Das.
thank you, Mr. Arnab. Like, thank you, Mr. Sanjit, as well. But then I want to also highlight one more fact that there are smart people in the industry, and there are people who are very innocent, who always get cornered with the typical corporate work culture. When I was basically working in India, I used to think that it is always the Indian culture to always stay back, long hours in office. But when I also came back out of India and I went to different countries in different strip of Africa, Dubai, Europe, I also saw that there are two mixed groups. Of course, there are people who used to think that you should be very productive, but at the same time, you should also make a dent in your entire day and make sure that you are really getting that impact and doing the productivity or getting the productive things done. And there are people who used to think that you are productive or unproductive, you make sure that you stick with your chair and you are visible in the office. And the more you are visible, the more you are loyal to the company. And to a certain extent, I was also a victim of that at some places. And I have seen myself stretching beyond hours to make sure that I'm really not out of the clan. I'm really in the comfort zone where exactly people try to be a part of the tribe, that everybody is holding back, stretching back, just to make sure that they are basically visible in the office. And then there was a time when I was also trying to, make a breakthrough and just trying to understand that why should I stay back? Because I understood that what exactly the psyche of the so-called managers or the so-called owners, and maybe there is a huge communication gap, which basically is being brought in this way, that if you are really working longer hours, you are more productive, which you have rightly said. But it is majorly sometimes the culture. It is majorly sometimes the mindset which is around the principles. So we have to understand that if someone is finishing his job and is leaving his desk by 5 p.m. or the 7 p.m. time, and if he is going for his personal life, so nobody should really raise a question thinking that he's leaving early. Because we have to understand that when we talk about work-life balance, so I think it starts from here, that if you're really not thinking that the person who clocks on time, he should also clock out on time. If he's clocking in the right time and he's clocking out on the time, it is the responsibility of that department to ensure that how well we are engaging that person. And if we have a proper
Absolutely.
mechanism to engage that resource, we automatically will know that whether this person is productive or not. So I think
Absolutely.
it is just
Absolutely,
not
Mr. Das.
only, yeah, it
Here's
is just
something
not
which
only
I
an
would like to add.
individual's wish. Everybody wants to leave, go in time and go out of time, but sometimes they cannot. And certain cases I've also seen that people are really getting burnt out. They're
I
getting
will I will
exhausted.
actually take up this pointer here, Mr. Das. I will
Yeah.
actually want to take up this pointer because there's something which I recently faced. I actually was at a training session for a corporate, and I was approached by a couple of new joinees in the group, the training batch. And both of these gentlemen walked up to me, young people, absolutely young, fresh out of college, straight in, and they were placed into this uh, orientation kind of program, which was a management orientation program. So anyway, so the thing was that these two gentlemen their problem that they were facing is that they have, both of them have a CSE, BTech in CSE, a computer science degree. Yeah. But their core interest areas are something else. However, the organization has picked them up because of their strength in that, but the organization has placed them currently to work on some other software backend. Yeah. Now the problem with these two people is that they are feeling out of place. They are not really finding it interesting enough and are burning out. So burnout is not necessarily because you're overworked. Burnout is also because you're not enjoying what you do. Over to you.
Or I can say that it is because they are not engaged properly. The talent is not engaged
Absolutely.
properly. So that is also one
Absolutely.
of the reasons
Absolutely.
that why someone is not productive. So when we are engaging a talent, or we are recruiting someone, or we are trying to find a resource, we have to make sure that we have a proper job role defined for that person. Otherwise, we are setting him to fail. With time, that person
Absolutely.
will fail.
So you see, here also I want to say something that Mr. Arnav said, that burnout is not that because of due to your work. It happens because of you are not interested in the work. So
Oh,
same thing
yes.
happened with me also. I'm also a victim of
There
this.
you go.
Once I joined an educational institute as a trainer. Okay. So they told me, look, you have to train certain people in our company, or maybe some attendees, or some newcomer. So I joined that on that basis of giving the training. But after a few months, they told me that now you have to bring students for the educational institute. So now your job would be to convince the uh, people to join certain courses. So now this is not my area basically, but again,
Right.
that job was very important to me. I cannot say no, I cannot do this. So somehow I was just doing it so that I can stay in the company. But after a few months, after 2 3 months, I started having problem, because I was having stress, I was having anxiety, that how can I bring the students so that they can join the so that is what I also face. Sometimes the company also, they hire the employee with a different aspect, and they put in a different place.
Oh,
So
yes.
they find themselves, out of fish out of the water, something like this.
Thank you
Okay.
so much for
Yeah.
sharing this thought. I would just quickly go to Mohana and request Mohana to highlight more on the tips as an individual, what one should do to become productive, and what you think, what exactly maybe you do, if you can share with us, and also
Yes.
shed some more light that what exactly are the challenges in doing that.
Yes, absolutely. So the first and foremost thing which I would like to say is, as I already said, that productivity is something which cannot be, brought up overnight. There are some people who do make it look effortless, but in true sense, it is not that effortless exactly. Like that is what I have felt with my life actually. So there are a number of things which one can do, let it be a student or a professional or whoever it is, to be more productive. Well, the first and foremost thing, as it is already mentioned, is creating a plan. One of the most important thing is to set goals and making plans of how to execute that. Because, and most importantly, these goals should be attainable goals. Because something unattainable, if we plan of doing that unattainable thing, that makes us more depressed and will lead to something unproductive again.
Correct.
So the first and foremost thing is setting up goals and creating a plan to execute it. Now, if we have a specific goal in mind, we are more likely to work towards it, and we're more likely to stay on the right track. Planning what we need to get done and doing that step by step, and writing it down at a particular place and then executing it makes it more easy. So the four things which we keep in mind while planning is what we need to do, when we need to do, how we need to do, and whether this project is part of a bigger goal or not. It's not like that, we're just doing it for the sake of just get it done. We should know the long term values of doing that thing. Well, so this is something. Then the second thing is we should take care of ourselves. We shouldn't force ourselves to do something continuously. Like, as it was already said by somebody here, that we cannot be productive all the time, which is very normal for a human being. Like, we cannot be productive 24 into 7. It's impossible. It is unrealistic. So, in order to be realistic, we should make a schedule and then do our work, like taking breaks. As per the individual, it is not always similar for everybody because people have different mindsets and people's brain work differently at different points of time. So yeah, we should know how to take care of ourselves. We shouldn't force ourselves to do something, getting ourselves deprived of sleep, deprived of eating healthy or taking up a real hard schedule. That is
Mhm.
something which is like a big red flag. We shouldn't be doing that. Then the third thing which we need to keep in mind is how to fight procrastination, which is again something very deadly. We are making plans, but then we tend to procrastinate it. Like, we'll do it tomorrow, or maybe like do it again tomorrow, and this tomorrow never comes. So, what we need to do is we should not procrastinate it. Like, until we have that energy, we should get it done. That makes us more productive, and that actually makes the work more efficient, even because we tend to think that maybe later we'll do it and it will be better, but it doesn't happen. Like, it happened with me while painting. It usually happens like I come from a university and then I plan like I'll just make a painting today, and then something like, no, let's just do it tomorrow. Tomorrow maybe I'll be more free and I won't get tired doing it, and yeah, it will be better. But this better thing never comes, and what happens is it gets worse because we eventually lose the interest and we eventually lose the energy. So the first thing first, once it comes into our mind, we should just get it done. That's it. And then the next thing is we should ask for help whenever needed. It's not like we can do everything. No, it cannot happen. Nobody is perfect. There are certain times when we need help from others. So yeah, we should learn to, ask others for help. Like, this is something and we cannot do it. Let's just get some help or just get some ideas of how to do it, then it becomes more effective, more efficient. The next thing is we should learn how to say no. It's not like works are coming one after the other and we're just doing it. It doesn't happen. It makes the work more inefficient. Like, the primary task then gets destroyed. It gets somehow worse because we tend to focus on the next work again. So we shouldn't be doing that. Like, we should know our limit. We should know where to stop and how much we can do. We should know our abilities, and everybody should, keep a focus on that. So, yeah, these are the things which I follow, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Mohana. You have really highlighted some crucial points, and I'm so glad that you did so. And as a youngster, you follow them. So I think this opens an eye. Also, I'm sure like our other like panelists or guest speakers also will agree, which Mohana has said, because I think that sometimes we get really crazy just becoming, in the order to become more productive, and sometimes we tend to burn out ourselves, which could be one of the reasons. And the second thing, which Mona has rightly said, that sometimes it is important for us to say no. We may get tempted,
Correct.
or sometimes we get flown by the order of our work, or maybe the kind of work culture which we're into, and we always accept many things, and we become a yes man. So most of us have the habit of becoming a yes man, being very sweet to people, sweet talker. So always trying to
I'm not.
make others
I'm
happy.
not.
So please don't do that. So please try saying no. I think that is really appreciated. And then when Mohana also said that sometimes it's really crazy. I will tell you one of my experience. What I used to do initially, I think a couple of years before also, I used to start my day by checking my WhatsApp and my inbox, and I will just get flown with so many emails coming from different clients, from my colleagues and new recruits, and and from my vendors, and I would just try to always reply back. And then I found that a huge amount of the time, or a maximum hours, or the productive hours, are going into that. And what happens is, like, I always get lagged behind, and we always lose out on the important tasks which are supposed to be drawing my attention. And unfortunately, I used to always miss out those things. So I just started a technique where I basically started following a typical, Google Calendar, which was very easy. I used to block my calendars potentially with even the tangible as well as the intangible exercises for me in a whole day. And then I make sure that which are exactly the tangible exercises for me. So maybe checking email could be important, but I can do it maybe when after the break, or whenever I start my next half. So not maybe the initial part of the day, maybe the initial part of the day, which can take the maximum concentration, which is really important for the day. Otherwise, the important things become urgent if I don't do it. And second thing which I started doing is, I may have 4 meetings in a day, but I really, previously I was having a habit of jumping for all the 4 meetings. Or I used to, be very soft or be very generous in telling people that, sir, I am available, I'll speak to you. But ultimately it happens that some meetings overlap, and 10 minutes, 15 minutes, there is a delay in the next meeting. So I then have started making a habit that I will see only maximum 2 meetings in a day. And no matter how important that client meet or that particular vendor, I will always try to do it in the next day. And so maybe my weekend, before I go for a weekend, so I would make sure that I really have a calendar for the next week. And then I always leave one day. So I always keep a buffer now. So maybe I do not keep any important meetings on Monday, except my bosses or my important critical exercises. I start my day one day at a buffer. So basically Monday, where I organize myself for the whole week, maybe for the rest of the 4 days. And I know that what exactly I'll be doing Tuesday onwards. So, if I keep so many exercises on Monday, then I would be really clouded, and I would basically again become crazy, and I'll start panicking that I really have not done justice to my to-do list or my exercises.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
this is something
That's a
which I've
great.
started following. And I'm sure, like, sometimes when we try to become productive and think more on productivity, but what it ends up, actually, we get too much stressed up. And the stress factor is
Correct.
also really very difficult to, get it out of your mind.
There's one more thing which I would probably, I'm sorry to cut you in,
Yeah,
Mr.
please.
Das, but we have been, all four of us have actually missed out a very, very important point, which I wanted to kind of mention towards the end of the call, which was very, very important. This is absolutely important and shouldn't be missed, which is, after we all have spoken about, breaking up your tasks, organizing them into most important and, importance and urgent basis, etc., etc. But what we haven't talked about is this: reward yourself for every small completed task.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter how small the reward is.
Yeah.
Have a candy for all you know.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
make sure that these small rewards go a long way. The next time you would want to do that, not because you gave yourself a reward, but because you think that this is something which I should be doing. It is more effective that way. So when you have made a to-do list, uh, you have achieved the first of them. The most important and the toughest and the longest that would take should be the first of the lot. That's how
Absolutely.
your classification should be. And keep a deadline that I have to finish the first task by such and such.
Exactly.
Keep a buffer, which is what you absolutely brilliantly mentioned. Keep a buffer like that, probably a half-hour buffer. You say, okay, if I start at 10, I should be finishing this by maximum 2 p.m. today. I will postpone my lunch for an hour. I will finish this by 2 p.m. today. But just in case it doesn't, I will push it for another half an hour, but I will finish it by 2:30. If I can finish it by 2:30, I'll take a 1.5 hour lunch break today instead of a 1 hour.
Absolutely.
So give yourself that. That's important.
Right.
Oh, back to you.
I really appreciate, and that is really important. That is so important. I would request Mr. Venus, who is there, if he has certain like questions who he might like to ask, or he might like to make some points here. Thank you, Mr. Venus, for joining this webinar.
Thank you, sir. Actually, it is always a privilege to go through all these your webinars, and I'm thankful to you that today's topic was really very much close to me because many times we have to evaluate the performance and all. Two questions I have, and in general, I want to share with you because rest of the things what you said is perfectly we all pass the same thing one or the other time in the life. Number one, company's environment. When someone really performing good or he's a self-motivated or someone who is, as Arnab ji rightly said, कि I give the good positive feedback to me कि मुझे संतोष हुआ मैंने काम अच्छा से किया है whatever the results may be but I'm motivated next day I'm coming and doing the things at the same time somebody says boss you are the घड़ी वाले बंदे हो 6 बज गए भाग गए okay so this kind of taunting and other things is an environment how to deal with this environment question number one number two some of the tasks which you are doing perfectly well as Miss Mohana ji said he say to no and all these things but there are certain tasks where you need to get along with your team in your team there are the certain kind of peoples okay somebody is giving you the task which you are not fit for it like Sanjit ji said कि हाँ यार अभी आप ये भी सेल करो वो भी सेल करो ये तो आप करते हो वो करो ही करो it's okay somebody can excel it somebody don't but in certain case where you have to get along with your team how to get motivated self motivated in that scenario so these are the two questions I have
Very good
culture
questions.
and the team
The first
thank you
one,
sir
the
I think
first,
Mr. Arnab
the
should,
first question.
yeah, Mr. Arnab.
Yeah, the first question I found very interesting. But once again, was what exactly was the first question?
He wanted to
Mm,
ask you that there are situations when a person actually has to get taunted by his colleagues or sometimes by
right,
his
right,
line
right.
managers.
So that's
Yeah,
I would like to love to answer that. I wanted particularly to answer this question. Yes, this will happen. I mean, be assured this will happen because if there is a culture in the organization of staying back, this will definitely happen. And unlike professional organizations where you know if you don't leave the seat, the next shift guy cannot come in and occupy that seat, so that's a different story. But yes, in most scenarios what you said is absolutely correct. And in such scenario, this is what I would respond. Believe me, um, my stuff is all done, and tomorrow's stuff is yet to come. So I would prefer to spend the rest of my time with my family. So thank you very much. It's your flaw that you have not finished your responsibilities as yet. Want help? Let me know. I'll probably calendarize a little bit of my extra time tomorrow for you. I also be taunting enough towards it.
that is
Over
that
to
is
you,
that is
Mr.
very
Das.
very gentle and a very polite way to do so, and a very witty answer. But at the same time, I would also
Absolutely.
add on here that it also has happened with me, and it happens with me. And whenever it happens, I always make sure that I have my the answers ready. And the best thing is when you can always tell them that, see, I have already ticked all my check boxes for the day, that I need to restore myself so that I come back with a better energy tomorrow. And I believe that I also have a personal life. So I think this should be very much clear even to your upline, that you have a personal life. Like you
Absolutely.
can, you can love your job, you can love your profession, but there has to be something even out of your job. So that thing should be, because
Correct.
it's all about your self identity, it's all about the courage to speak out. If you do not speak
Very
out of
simple, very
yourself.
simple point.
Exactly.
Very simple points here, Mr. Das.
Yeah.
Why do I go to work? Okay, I'm passionate about training. I'm passionate about selling, whatever I'm
Yeah.
passionate about. I go to workplace not because I want to spend my life at work. I go to the workplace because of two primary things. One, I have to back up my food factory, my bed factory, and my house factory. The fourth and most important thing is I go to work because I want to make up enough money so that I can take holidays.
Absolutely.
Now that holiday is important to me. I earn not because I want to, I want success for your organization. I earn because I want success for myself as well. So that needs to be an identity. It's not just the organization, it's also me. And I have to go back home because I have a family and I have health, mental and physical. That's important. Back to you, Mr. Das.
I think
One
somebody
thing, hello,
shared a
okay.
message with me. I will come back to you, Sanjay. Somebody shared a message to me that we live so harder that we forget to live for tomorrow. So, like if you see that
Correct.
people are really acquiring a lot of wealth and trying to get enough security for their retirement, and that retirement, after retirement, how much they live? Hardly 10 years, 11 years. So if you are
Will
just,
you be able to live? Forget how long you live. My point is very simple. My point is you retire at 60, whatever, 60, 65. Okay,
yeah,
great. You retire at 50 for all I care. Now, my point is simple. If you are earning a lakh per month, I'm just taking a round off figure. If you're earning a lakh per month at 25 or 27 or 30, for example, and you have not gone snorkeling, do you think at 60 you would want to go snorkeling?
or you would be the physical ability to do so.
Will you have the physical ability to do so? No. So go do it when you can. Simple.
Absolutely.
Live
Absolutely.
life, live life before life leaves you.
Exactly. I would like to come back to Mr. Sanjit. He wanted to say, I think, the second part of the answer of Mr. Venus.
Yeah, no, actually, I just wanted to say that Mr. Arnav said something that is, uh, there's a very good quotation by our late president, APJ Abdul Kalam,
Okay.
that if you salute your job, no need to salute others. Okay.
Oh, yes.
So if you really do your job well, so then no need to please others. Everybody will pay respect to you.
Absolutely.
But the basic problem with the most of the employees are that they do not do their job properly, and that's why they try to they try to please
That's
Please
others.
why they
others.
try to salute their bosses. No, no, that's simple. He said, do not salute your job, not to the boss. What they
Yeah,
do is they salute their boss and not the job. So simple. You'll have to
yeah,
do either one or the other. There you go.
absolutely. So
So
this
I
is
think,
okay.
Mr. Venus, you got your answer. But then what was exactly, I think, very important, which is really the message in your important question, which I understand, that how really to implement them. Because, saying no to others, because, it is not only in the work
Oh, yeah.
life, but also in the
That was the second
personal life.
pointer.
Personal life also, we get a
Yes,
lot of requests. I remember the day when I'm basically back at home in India, and then I will find a lot of friends and dear ones who will come to meet me, and maybe I'm just trying to do something constructive, and I find them as a intrusion. Sorry to say that, but then at that point of time, I have to give under the social pressure or the family pressure. I have to get flown with that, but I cannot tell them that I really need to finish my video editing, I need to really read a book, or I need to shoot a video for my channel. So they won't understand that. But sometimes it is important, or it is what exactly we call as emotional intelligence, which we have to use. That was in fact our last week's topic, where we exactly discussed that where we need to be using that emotional intelligence, where we have to draw the fine line of demarcation between our professionalism and our personal priorities. So do not take
and
your
also,
professional.
and also,
Yes,
very, very important pointer, which I think the gentleman was asking on, is that saying no is something which even I think several corporate gurus have said. I mean, I'm saying gurus not as trainers or something. I'm saying gurus as some of the big
yeah,
names like
stalwarts.
Mr. Murthy and stuff like that,
Mhm.
stalwarts of the industries, have said, please learn how to say no. Because if no, not saying no actually generates a lot of, not just generates a lot of conflict, it generates a lot of trash in your life. It generates a lot of conflict not only at the workplace but also within people. If you don't say no today, tomorrow expectations change. So there needs to be a demarcation. Saying no will ensure that tomorrow the other person will actually respect your privacy. I
Absolutely.
have done that. I mean, there have been scenarios. This is an example, a brief one. I will like to share it. There was a scenario where I had a boss who who had called me at an odd hour after I had left work on a Friday um, evening, and she called me and said, he called me. I'm sorry. He called me and said, Arnab, was this particular email sent? My first response when I picked up the phone was like, hello, I'm sorry, wrong number. He got offended. He called back and said, hello, Arnab. I said, yes. Arnab, was this particular email sent to the client? I said, who is this, please? I'm sorry, I'm not sure who I know you. The third time this gentleman called me, I responded the same way, and he disconnected. The next week morning, Monday morning, when I walked into work, he came in a little late. As soon as he was in the office, he calls me. I pick up the phone and say, good morning, sir. How are you? I used to call him by name, but that's a different story. Hi, good morning. How are you? He says, I'm good, Arnab. Can we meet? I said, yeah, we can. He said, come over, please. I walk over to his desk. I said, good morning. How are you? How's the day coming along? He looks up at me and says, it's the day's coming along nice. But what was about that? What was that about on Friday? I said, look, one, it was Friday. Two, it was post 6 p.m. Three, whatever I was doing, I don't think my response would have actually been very professional. So going forward, please don't call me at that time. Believe me, he never called me after 6 p.m. ever again in his life.
That is so daring of you, Mr. Arnab. Salute to you. So here I would really salute to you for your courage and your sheer
If
grit,
people
I
don't
must say.
learn, if people don't learn, you'll have to do it the other way.
Yes, Mr. Venus, want to say something?
No, it is really courageous things you have done. I really, frankly speaking, I will not motivate others to do the same thing because
No, please don't do that. Please don't do that. There is a disclaimer.
so
I
yeah,
wouldn't
At your
suggest.
own risk.
No,
there's a
I
Do
wouldn't.
it
disclaimer.
at your own risk.
And do this at your own risk. But I'll say this, that if you know you have a relationship with your boss that way, that strong, then you
Hmm.
know that you can get away with this
Yeah.
because he will respect your limit,
Privacy. You will respect your
Uh,
privacy.
privacy.
okay, yeah,
But that
actually,
relationship needs to be strong.
Yeah.
yes,
Sorry, go on.
I agree on that. Uh, Dasab, actually, I was just trying to say one thing that absolutely this thing started from Miss Mohana and Arnabji rightly said ki how to you have to say no to certain things. Definitely, at certain point you have to. Lekin the thing is that how to say no, number one. Number two, see, sometimes you also have to ask for the help and somebody says no, how to take no also on you. That is also very
I
important.
have an
Absolutely.
answer for this.
Absolutely.
If you allow me.
Absolutely.
I have an answer for this. When Ms. Mohana also rightly pointed out that thankfully she pointed that productivity is also about the efficiency of a person. That how efficient you are
Correct.
in doing a task. If you really try to go by the proportion, how we measure productivity, that number of hours in input and what you get in output, right? So what exactly is the unit
Correct.
hours you are spending for a given task? What exactly output you get? So you may say yes to many things, but how efficient you are saying yes to that? That is also number one, which you should
Correct.
consider. Second thing, the person always have a bandwidth, whether in your professional life or personal
Very
life.
important.
Now the
Absolutely.
point
Very
is, you have to establish this fact to your boss or to your manager or to your colleague or to your dear one that you have a bandwidth. And beyond that bandwidth, you cannot really cater. So if
Correct.
you
Absolutely.
really, if you really can make this thing more transparent and vocal through maybe a polite submission, it could be a friendly,
Yes.
open communication. That's it. This is what is my limit.
And
And
but this is
beyond this
this I
bandwidth,
think
I cannot cater to.
This, I think,
Asad,
a boss or manager should be aware of, because it's a manager's responsibility
yes,
to
yes, yes,
be aware of
yes.
your bandwidth. Very, very important.
Dasab,
If
yeah,
the manager or boss is not aware of your bandwidth or your capabilities,
And
then he has a problem. He has a problem.
yes,
That boss
absolutely,
needs
yes.
to be taken care of.
Dasab, I
absolutely.
have a request.
Yeah,
I
please.
have a request to you. Uh, it's just a general suggestion that if you can make one webinar on how to say no and how to take no, I
Thank
think
you
that
so
will
much for
definitely
this
help
request.
because
We'll come up
you
with
are a
this
very good
topic
orator.
very soon.
Yeah, because you're a very good orator and your corporate experience is so rich. Arnab, the experience is so rich. Yeah, Sanjit Basu Sab, I always see that when he's sharing his thing, it is directly from his heart. Mohanaji is young, but she's already putting very nice points. So you are a very good team, which I can say if you put your the same way you are putting your videos, people started learning to say no easily. But when it
Absolutely.
comes to them to accept it, यार मैंने उस दिन तुमको हेल्प किया था तुम मुझे मना कर रहे हो the first reaction.
Sentiments,
Really.
sentiments.
So
Yeah,
let's not have any hard
if
feelings.
you yeah, absolutely. So please take it on this one if you get some time. I
Yeah.
think that was my suggestion, and the rest of the things are quite okay. And
I would
actually, I
just
drove for
quickly come
200.
back to Mohana because
Hmm.
Miss Mohana only raised up this point. How do you say no to your peers, your family members, and when we request you doing so many things, and how exactly you say no? Means how do you say no to your people?
Oh, well, I'm very polite in saying no. What I personally do is I try making them explain how things are working at my part, and I just put a disclaimer like, see, this is my limit, and if you like push me forward, your work is not going to be as efficient as it will be tomorrow. So it's better, it is suggested that you keep it for tomorrow. I'll do it, I promise. And yeah, that will be more efficient. So yeah, keep it for tomorrow. That's what I say to everybody.
Absolutely.
Is that still saying no? You have still accepted it for tomorrow. I would. What the question was how to absolutely say no. Rather than you basically what you've done is you've
Yeah,
accepted it,
like,
but post on go to work tomorrow, which is okay.
yeah, what I do
So
is
you're
I
still doing
just
it. I'm saying
postpone it.
how absolutely saying no.
How do you say absolutely
That's a
no?
different question.
Well,
I'm
not
not going to
always
do it.
that I
That's what
do
I'm saying.
postpone things. uh, there are certain times I just make them explain that, see, this is the limit and I can do this much, and that is not in my capacity, and this cannot be done by me. So it's better if you seek help from others or do it some other way, and I'm really sorry for that. What I do is I
So
apologize.
basically,
That was
right.
being
So
honest.
basically, what you're trying to say is yes. So basically, what you're trying to say is you're giving an exact reason for
Oh,
not
yes.
being able to
Yes,
comply to
yes,
that person's request.
Yes, Mr.
That's very
Venus.
absolutely.
important. That's it.
Mr. Venus, you have a point.
Sir, may I share something from my second country called
Yeah,
Sudan?
sure, sure.
Because it is a because this reminds me that incident. So you must have heard the international business machine IBM.
Yeah.
Actually, the
Mhm.
IBM, there is also a proverb in our Sudanese language. IBM is stands for if you give a task to someone, they use the first I as Inshallah, means if
Mhm.
God wishes, we will do.
God willing.
Second,
God
the
willing.
B,
Yeah.
second, yeah, God willing, yes. And once you ask, okay, this is a task, Inshallah Bukra. So the B stands for Bukra means tomorrow. If God willing, I will do it tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll do it
And
tomorrow.
the most important part is the M, which is the malish. Malish in Arabic means I'm sorry. So when you come tomorrow and you ask, boss, what happened to this task? He said, Malish ya Habibi. So eventually, you end up doing the same task by yourself. So majority of the time, we end up doing the task which is supposed to be done by our colleague or our
Exactly.
juniors. We end up doing by ourselves. So this IBM, this when Miss Mona said that this IBM came into my mind, so I just want to share with you on the lighter note.
Thank you.
You
Thank
got
you
a
so
word.
much. It was
Good.
really an absorbing session. We have already crossed our time limit, but then we will keep on this kind of interactions. Thank you, Mr. Arnab. Thank you, Mr. Sanjit. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Vinas, Ms. Mohana, for being a part of this webinar. And we will be also having a relay telecast as usual tomorrow in the YouTube of this entire webinar so that people who have not been able to join, they can also get benefited by this wonderful talk. And we'll be back once again for the next week for some interesting topic. So be with us, stay tuned, stay positive, and stay listening to PMA webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.